You're listening to Inside Real Estate, your source for all things mortgage and real estate related. The show that brings you all the hottest topics and insights directly from those who know it most. Now sit back and enjoy the show.
Good morning, everyone. Paul Vasilakis, Salvatore Kuzmano, Brad Weisgerber. We are Inside Real Estate. How's everybody doing?
Great.
Good.
Yeah.
We have a very... What?
A little stuffed up.
Nobody cares. We have a very special guest. His name is Dylan Tent. He is from Signature Sotheby's in Birmingham. Also, we just talked about it. Actually, they're in Northville as well. He is a luxury market connoisseur. He knows his shit on that end of it. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. How are you guys doing today?
Good, man. Good. So today we're going to talk a little bit about what Dylan's doing in the luxury side, and you know we haven't had a lot of that conversation recently. We're going to talk about Quicken getting hammered on a lawsuit. We're going to talk about a Blackstone raising $20 billion for a real estate fund. We'll get into that boring stuff here in a few minutes. But, Dylan, thank you for being on the show. Tell the audience a little bit about your background. How did you end up at Sotheby's? How did you get into the business? Because you're a pretty young guy, so just everybody knows this. He was featured in Real Producers of Oakland County as a rising star. He's got a really good reputation. He does some crazy videos. He's riding a jet ski in his suit. He's known as the helicopter agent because he flies a fucking helicopter and takes pictures of beautiful properties. So tell us how you got into all this, man.
Well, how it started was when I was in college. I dropped out after I watched a Red Bull snowboarding movie, The Art of Flight, if you haven't seen it.
Okay.
And
no.
That moment I dropped out of college and wanted to become a heli ski pilot. So I went through and got all my ratings, and I went and moved out to California to get my instrument rating. They offered me a job as a flight instructor, and they wanted me to teach Chinese people how to fly that barely spoke English for $400 a week.
That was your thing.
Sign me up.
Wow.
And
okay. It sounds easy.
So I go, I don't want to die over $400 a week. And I'm flying over Malibu, and I see all these beautiful homes.
Yeah.
And I go, I bet I could take a picture of that and sell it door to door and do $500 a day instead of, $500 a week.
Genius.
So
Yeah.
I came back home and I took photos of like all the nicest homes in Oakland, Wayne, and Livingston County. And then I went door to door and sold them to businesses and homes.
Wow, dude. That's interesting.
One of my customers said, hey, if you get your real estate license, you can sell my house, and the house is $1 million. So,
all right, deal.
And so then a couple weeks after that, after I went and got my real estate license, I joined Sotheby's because my friend who was into fancy stuff like watches and wine said, oh, if you want to sell houses with a helicopter, you got to go to Sotheby's. So, So I went, started working there, and then after a couple weeks, I made this really amazing virtual tour video of the property, which is a couple years ago before people were really doing it a lot.
Yeah.
And, somebody on my hockey team saw it, and they showed their parents, and then I had another $1 million listing. It was $1.3 million in South Lyon.
That's a pretty quick start, man.
Yeah.
I mean, like usually we're like scrapping to get a $100,000 deal done when you first start. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, then
we did something different.
My third listing was 2.7, and I got it from an open house from my first listing.
That's wild.
So in 5 months, I had all these amazing properties for sale, and every time that we filmed a video, we tried to feature myself in it doing something crazy or ridiculous. So, and by the third one, we jumped a motorcycle, 150 feet, and it looked like you're jumping over this house.
Get out of here.
And then we're hitting.
Real?
Yeah, I'll show you guys.
Awesome.
After this, it's kind of funny, but and so then. Every time I ever listed a property, people would go, what's the next, ridiculous video going to be? And my friend James Cook with Cook Productions, he's shot everything with me from day one.
Yeah.
And, we've, we're paddleboarding, wearing a suit. We're like,
Seen that.
we have fun with it. So we just try to bring the lifestyle out of every property. And then, it gets enormous viewership online.
That's interesting. So you made a conscious decision. I mean, listen, just so the audience understands, it's not typical to get into the business and have a quick start. I mean, it's not that easy, right? $1 million listings don't happen very easily. You've got to be pretty innovative. And you made a decision to use your personality, which I love, utilize social media and marketing on a different level that wasn't being done potentially at that time at a high level, right? So that's interesting that you went into it that quickly and made those decisions that fast. I mean, a lot of people, it takes a long time to get to that point.
Yeah, I mean, getting the business is more than half the battle, right? Once you got it, it's kind of like you have all the support in the office to help you out with it. But the fact that you were able to take something that you're passionate about above and beyond real estate, right? And actually intertwine those is cool. It's like, for me, that'd be like Sal, the pizza loan officer, right? Like, I wish I had something cool like that.
Well,
Sal's the pizza loan officer.
He'll bring a pizza to your closet.
Yeah.
Hot and ready.
you know, I've made this brand as like the heli realtor, and
Yeah.
it makes people want to like look at it and share it online. But I think it can be done in the mortgage world too, because like,
For sure.
let's pretend, okay, everybody wants to do bigger deals, right? So why not be the doctor loan officer?
Okay, yeah.
Hang around college
Proctologist.
campus.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Hang around college campuses and go, you know, whoever's taking their MCAT, you know, you go and wherever those people are.
Yeah.
Because a doctor loan, you can borrow like $1 million on
Yeah.
your first go at it.
Yeah,
With
it's-
like no down.
Well, you
Yeah.
have to set yourself a niche, right?
Yeah,
And
so-
obviously,
What's your brand going to be is really what you want. Like, what's your story going to be? Which I think a lot of people miss in our industry. That like you have to create a brand for yourself on some level, right? Branding is huge.
Well, and undoubtedly, like you said, if you hung around college campuses and had a huge social, thing about being a doctor loan officer or a new construction loan officer, hanging out around, and doing the whole social thing, you would get all that business.
yeah. You're not allowed at college campuses, Sal. You know, that isn't
Is there a
good thing.
story
I don't
there?
even. No, I
you
just don't
just
want to
don't.
ever
There could
go
be.
back.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
It was
so-
fun times, but that's it.
So talk to me about so obviously as a person that's pretty innovative, you probably had some options. I mean, you didn't have to stay at Sotheby's, right? And Sotheby's is one of the few, we were just talking about this, like luxury brand, boutique-y type shops in our area. And, a lot of people kind of go to the Keller Williamses and Remax. And I don't think there's anything wrong with any of these things, but you made a decision to go to Sotheby's and stay there. So talk to me about that experience.
Well, at the end of the day, when it comes to marketing a property over, sorry, I got to get a little closer to the mic here.
It's okay.
When it comes to marketing a property in the higher price ranges, exposure is everything. And when you list with us, no matter what, all of our listings go on the Wall Street Journal, Architectural Digest, Mansion Global, Dwell, James Edition, which is like Craigslist for billionaires.
Wow.
We advertise in China on their internet behind their firewall.
Get out of here. I
We
didn't
have
know that.
we have
That's
offices
interesting.
globally,
I
so
didn't know any of that.
if we want to relocate somebody, we can relocate them, and we'll probably be the most reputable real estate company in the area, especially if you're in somewhere like Dubai or Pakistan. In whatever the luxury areas, I'm sure we're sitting there.
So Sotheby's is intentionally like, we're the luxury brand. That's who we are.
Well, the company's over 300 years old.
Is it
and,
really?
Yeah, it's originally an estate auction house.
That's right, because Sotheby's auctions, right? You see that all the time, right?
And I say to people, I mean, this year we sold the most expensive Ferrari ever at $48 million, and so the affluent consumer, just assumes when you're affiliated with this brand that
Yeah.
you're affiliated with luxury. And
Yeah.
if you get off the airplane at Aspen over the baggage claim, you see listings for $30 million, and it's all branded with Sotheby's.
Right next to a Rolex ad, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, right.
Exactly. So it's just that, and so you have to do a little bit less selling yourself when you go on an appointment with these people, because they
gotta-
know that
yeah.
they know that they're going to get an amazing advertising package, and that's why my average list price right now is over $2 million.
Yeah.
And I know that if I went to a different brand or anything like that, you're gonna every one of your clients in the luxury price point is going to suffer from like representation online and in print.
Yeah. So let me ask you, how old are you, Dylan?
27.
27 years old. This is really interesting. You're 27 years old. You're super successful. You're really pushing the envelope on what you're doing. What is your most 25 years old? Because you started when? What age?
I started like right when I was turning 24.
24. So not a lot of 24-year-olds have that kind of drive or the mental fortitude to because real estate, boys and girls, is a tough, competitive. It's cutthroat, right? So what motivation and what kind of habits have you instilled in yourself to make sure that you put yourself in a position to be successful?
Everything that I like is expensive, and
Yeah.
That's a good reason right there.
not going to college for and getting a degree or anything like that.
Yeah.
I kind of had
Overrated.
to. I had
Totally
to.
overrated.
I had to choose kind of a sales career. I've always enjoyed it. I've always kind of felt like I could belong in that environment.
Yeah.
I wanted to buy a helicopter after I got my pilot's license, and I noticed that I wanted to be in an industry where your income is directly correlated to your
Effort.
your effort.
Yeah.
But not just your effort, it's working smart too.
your
Because
skill, yeah.
people are like, oh, it takes hard work to be successful. It's like, I've seen some people that work really hard, laying bricks and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, man, if you want to use your brain to try to, offer something that other people can't. And that's where I kind of want to see this headed with my career. Is my goal is to purchase a helicopter this year and have it available for all of my clients to use with me. like take them for tours of properties. All my lenders, anybody that works with me, we're going to go up
I
front.
want a helicopter ride, bro.
You're going to get one.
All right, I want one. Right.
I want a daily one to win.
Give me 2 months. It's in
That's
the
a little icy, huh?
It's in the works right now. It's just been it's been my dream. And before I wanted to do a tour operation out of Detroit. In 2011, I wrote a business plan for it, and I had somebody that was willing to fund me. But I looked at purchasing this $500,000 machine, and I'm like, man, I'm gonna.
Is that how much that costs?
At around that. I mean, I'm looking at a used one now that I could get for about half of that, which has half its
Still
life left.
$250,000.
Yeah.
Half its life. Well, wait. Hold on a sec. And a helicopter. By the way, like helicopters kind of freak me out because like you can't really glide down.
Yeah, that's a myth.
Wait, what?
So
You can glide a helicopter
As long
down
as your
to the ground?
rotors aren't damaged, you'd probably fly down like a leaf, right?
We could turn the engine off, and I could land it in a spot about 50 feet wide, and you wouldn't know it.
Get out of here.
You would be dropping pretty quickly, but what happens? What happens is, you lower the collective pitch is what it's called. It's basically the thrust on the blades.
Yeah.
And you glide down, and at the end, the air rushing up through the blades is going to keep it spinning enough that at the end you can cushion it.
It's like one of those leaves that fall down on the ground, right?
Pretty much.
Helicopter
And
leaves.
if you do it right, it's so stable that you could touch down and you wouldn't even smack the ground hard.
How do you practice that?
You turn off the engine.
Shut the fuck up.
I mean, you don't actually turn it off. You throw the throttle down and you practice it. We practice
No
it,
kidding.
probably 5 times every time we go up. And,
that makes me feel a lot better about
How
getting
do
a
you
helicopter
practice?
with you.
Well, dude, you
Escaping
can
a
land
burning
it, like
building.
he said, in a 50-foot wide area. You get like a seaplane or something like that. Bro, it's lights out if you don't have a place to land.
I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, we'll do it. We practice this all the time, and we'll do it. And again, if I didn't tell you, you just think, oh, we're coming down quick. This is cool.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Paul wouldn't be like that. He'd be
No,
like,
I'd be
what
like,
the hell's going on?
Right?
pooping my pants. I'm like hugging Dylan for
Yeah.
dear life.
So
It's
at
like,
24 years old, getting into this type of market, I mean, you talk about your clientele.
Yeah.
I mean, they're generally older or
Yeah.
super successful people that hang around a lot of other super successful people. How do you get past the gray hair effect? Or you're super young, right? How do you get the respect of your clients?
It's a great question.
So as I started, I've always been the kid that growing up was friends with my friends' parents too. Like if I was friends with you, I was also friends with your parents,
You're an old soul.
especially
Yeah.
well, especially the business people. I was always interested, learning. I was always reading, and I was
Yeah.
always, I think, talking intelligently about stuff that was business related from a younger age. And so when I got into this, I mean, again, the guy who told me I could sell his $1 million house as my first listing, the guy's worth big money.
Yeah.
And he's like, I was really hoping that you would get into this, and we've done a ton of deals together.
That's awesome.
And
so
lot
you've
of
had good support too, just based on
Yeah.
who you were and how and being
Networking.
aligning yourself with.
it
good
started
people,
at a much younger age of building trust with these guys. I
Yeah.
mean, these are guys that, if at 20 years old they'd say, hey, if you want to take the Lamborghini out, it wouldn't have been a big deal. Like
Yeah.
it wouldn't have been a big deal for me to either ask, and it wouldn't have been a big deal for them to do it because they trust me. Because I'm
Yeah.
not going to go and drive it like a jackass. And
You know what's really
If you break
interesting
it,
about
you
what
buy
you're
it.
saying? It's at a very young age you realized, and it's organic. I'm not saying you were doing it for this reason, but you realized the importance of networking and creating relationships
Yeah.
with people that were like-minded, which a lot of people in our industry I think don't get. Sometimes people want to just go after a sale, and I see a lot of loan officers like talking to real estate agents. They're like, "Oh, well, we're better," and like,
Yeah.
"No, dude, just get out there and meet people, get to know them."
Well, and the biggest thing I think of all people, right? Poor, rich, whatever. I mean, you have to earn people's trust, right? And then
Yeah.
once you earn the trust, you can show and get that respect after the deal, right?
Yeah.
Well, here's kind of a fun fact. So I grew up racing motorcycles as well.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of business through the motorcycle
You're like
community.
the most interesting 28-year-old ever, right? Yeah,
Right. Well, so I wanted to. The owner of Ducati Detroit in Birmingham was going to buy a
Oh,
house.
I love ducks, dude.
Yeah,
They're such
and
bad bikes,
I
dude.
wanted to get a new bike, and
Yeah.
I heard that the owner was looking for a new house, and so I went in there
of
and
Ducati bikes. Okay.
yeah, he wanted to buy a house, and I had just started. I had my real estate license for like a month and a half or 2 months, and so I went in there, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm working with someone. We're looking for a house," and I'm like, "Well, if you work with me, I'll spend every dollar I earn in your store." And so.
I mean, there you go, dude.
So I bought a bike, and I spent like $40,000.
Yeah, they're not cheap, brother.
Right?
Yeah, for a bike. Yeah.
I went and raced 2 seasons with them all over the country racing motorcycles. And right now,
talking about this?
well, here we go. The crazy thing right now, I have over $6 million listed from
Yeah.
referrals from that dealership alone.
Get out of here.
I did.
That's
it-
again, it all goes back to networking, being a good human, getting to know people. That's interesting.
And the people that buy Ducatis are the people that buy Ferraris,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it's
yeah.
super fun. And it's just been a great group to hang out with. So, like, in a couple weeks, there's a motorcycle race at Ford Field. So I got a suite for that. And all my Ducati customers and my motorcycle friends are going to go
Yeah.
for that. And I try to keep stuff going after the transaction as well.
Yeah, it's not just it's not a transaction, dude.
Yeah.
It's a relationship. Because these people you end up being friends with them, right? And like if you do it right, like you can do this business and just be friends with people. It's really awesome.
Yeah, I'm 90% referrals.
Yeah, dude, that's awesome. That's really nice to hear. I think the audience needs to understand that
Yeah.
these people that buy all these leads and are like go out there and just make some relationships too, man.
Right.
Like,
I mean,
you
there's
know?
people that we don't work with because they open their own mortgage company or aren't in real estate anymore. But we did a lot of deals and we're friends.
Yeah.
We go to the bar, we go hang out,
I don't
whatever.
care.
Right?
It's
Yeah.
not about the business side. It comes up from being like cool with people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there are people, like you said, that people that stood at my wedding, that opened up their own mortgage companies, that had a real estate company. He's still my boy. I don't care, dude.
Yeah.
I wish you the best. Like, go kick some ass. We'll all kick some
Yeah,
ass.
and you
the
never
pie's
know,
pretty
like,
big.
the
Yeah, there's
future-
enough. Everyone needs somewhere to live.
Yeah,
And
dude.
so
Yeah.
when people are like, "Oh, you're going to steal my secrets," I'm happy to talk with anybody about
Sure.
anything I'm doing.
Yeah.
Like whether it's Instagram, whether it's mailers, whether it's postcards, whether it's video. I don't care because, like, even in our own company, I don't know. I can't name a time where I've ever competed with somebody from my own office for a listing.
Yeah.
Because it's just we all have our own networks of people and sphere of influence,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not like any of my motorcycle guys. If you're a real estate agent and you go in there and they try to pitch them anything at Ducati Detroit, they're
It's
gonna
over.
they're gonna
It's
get
yeah,
out of here.
have a great day, dude.
Yeah, they're gonna run you out of town. It's
Have a
gonna be
great
like
day,
that
dude.
guy that walks in the saloon in the old Western movie.
Yeah, he's like, "What are you doing here?
Yeah.
You need to get out of here. You can't sit at our table." So talk to me. So I love that because that's kind of what we built our company on. We want to create relationships. We don't want transactions, right?
Yeah.
It's way more important. It's more long lasting. And any real estate agent out there that's hearing this, understand that you can buy leads and that's awesome, but ultimately that'll only get you so far. Like, so I got guys in the office and I say, "Dude, make 50 calls today."
Yeah.
I don't care who you call. I don't care if it's your friends.
Your
I don't care
nanny.
if it's your whoever it is. Make 50 calls and get to know all the people that you're talking to and like just be cool with them. And business will come from that, right? So that's really good. So talk to me about your Instagram thing because we were talking about it prior to the show. Like you made a decision to really go after Instagram, which I think is a wide open space. It's a younger demographic. It's probably more millennial, probably more your. So do you believe that can translate into actual business for you?
I mean, and again, I was mentioning on the way here,
Yeah.
I got a lead for a $600,000 house from somebody that directly mentioned my videos on Instagram and Facebook.
Yeah.
And it was a friend of a friend.
Yeah.
I've never met the guy, but he sent me his address, and I'm going to go on an appointment with them later today. Now, basically, when I started this, I go, what can I offer that nobody else can? So I went to the company that has the most to offer, and I go, now how do we try to do something more than that? And
How do I add more value? How do I add more? Yeah.
so we started making these property tour videos with like,
Bless you. Jesus.
yeah, good God.
Sorry.
No,
It was right on me. By the way.
I went this way, bro.
Yeah. Okay.
but we'd make these videos, and they'd have some fun element of it, whether it's, jumping a motorcycle, jumping in a pool in a suit.
You guys got to see these videos, by the way. Like he's
They're
literally on a
outrageous.
jet ski in a suit, and I'm like, that looks awesome.
Well, and if I did that, let's say I just posted a video of the house, it'd get 2,000 views in a week on
Yeah.
a boosted post on Facebook.
Yeah.
If I do one like that, we landed a helicopter at a property.
People want to see that.
Earlier in the year, it got 35,000 views in the first week.
That's wild.
And, my Instagram page is one of the most followed real estate Instagram pages in the state by a long shot. And when I go to an appointment and I say, oh, by the way, our traffic from our video is going to get more traffic than Zillow, Realtor.com, the MLS, and Trulia combined in a week.
That's wild.
And for the entire duration of your listing. And so not only are we going to offer all these cool things for your listing with the Wall Street Journal and all our Rob Report and James Edition and Mansion Global and Dwell, you're also going to get me, and we're going to produce these videos. And that's what's, I think, put me in people's minds, because everybody knows 10 realtors. They go, oh, but have you seen that guy that does this?
Yeah.
And even if you don't like me and you think, oh, that guy's
Just
silly,
talking about you.
yeah, even if you're like, oh, I hate that guy, he's such a douche or
Yeah,
something like that,
yeah.
I don't care.
Trust me, dude. I know. I do a ton of
'Cause he watched
videos. A
it.
lot of people call me a douchebag, but I'm
And-
like, you're
Yeah.
talking about me.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, yeah, guess what? And nobody's talking about the house that you sold,
Yeah.
right? So
And
it's
you know
just-
what? I feel like, at least in our industry, like when we say that about someone, for whatever reason, we still want to meet them.
For sure.
And then we do, and we're like, wow, those guys are cool.
I'll give you an
Right?
example. Ryan and Nick Anthony from Remax, right?
We were
used
like,
to,
what?
We used to
D-bags?
blast them. Like, how many times are you going to button your coat, dude? You know what I mean? Like, how you got to get out of Bugatti, whatever. And then we met them, and we're like, dude, you guys are sweet as shit. Like, you guys are awesome. You know, it's funny. We're in my office, just a little tangent, and we'll get into these topics. But my LOs were like watching this video of a loan officer, and they're like making fun of him. They're like, "Oh, he's making these dumb videos." I'm like, really? I go, "Do you know who he
He's
is?"
doing more loans than you.
I go, "Do you know who he is?" They go, "Yeah." I go, "Does he know who you are?"
Yeah.
No. Does anybody know who you are? No. You're making fun of him, but you know who the hell he is,
Yeah.
right? So, I mean, I think that's a test, but it's uncomfortable, right? It is uncomfortable because you put yourself out there, and a lot of people won't do it because it is, because my friends make fun of me all the time. Like, what are you going to do? You're going to do Omega 60 at the golf course, dude? And I'm like, shut up, man.
Yeah, and that like I had somebody, an agent, that reached out to me, and I had this movie or this video, and we're jumping on a trampoline doing flips across.
I saw this. You're
Okay.
like super athletic.
Right.
Like, it's crazy.
And so the guy, I send out these mass emails, and it got to this other agent, and he like tells me, he goes, and I'm going to say this.
Yeah, you can say whatever you know.
He goes,
Yeah.
"Why don't you go jump on the trampoline again, you faggot?"
What?
my God.
Jesus Christ.
And it was another agent, and I was like, "Good God!" I'm like, "This guy hates me," and I'm
Jesus,
like,
and he hates. Yeah, he's
and
like,
I was
said
like,
that to you.
Christ.
and I was like, okay. And then so I looked up the guy's sales, and in the past 3 years, he's done one deal, and I'm like,
Oh my
I'm
God.
like. And he made some comments to me, and I was like, it sucks. I was like, how does it feel to be down 90% this year and have done one deal?
I mean, that's all you can say. The numbers don't lie.
You know,
dude.
and then I apologized, like, hey, sorry for taking a shot at you.
Like, you
And
felt bad because
and-
you're a good dude.
And then he goes, well, I mean, how do your parents feel that they couldn't, produce a straight son? I'm like, I'm not gay, and I'm like, okay, I'm like, whatever,
And,
dude.
and even if you were, what the hell's
Yeah,
wrong?
yeah. It was just kind of funny, but I'm like,
Wow. That's. I mean, there's trolls,
Man.
dude, but that's wild,
Some
dude.
horrible human
that's
beings
harsh,
out there.
yeah.
That's
Put
really,
that guy
really
on
crazy.
blast, dude.
But yeah, so you do get critics and things like that, and I had somebody on YouTube, and
You should have. If you don't have critics, you're not doing something right.
yeah,
dude.
I was some realtor in some other state. I'm jumping a motorcycle in the video,
Yeah.
and the person goes, "What does that have to do with selling a house?" I'm like, "Well, you watched it,
You're
know.
talking
did you
to me.
Did you see the house?
Are you talking to me? Do you know
Yeah.
who I am?
Right,
So
so-
listen, I mean, just so the people understand, like, I believe wholeheartedly in a lot of social media marketing and getting your name out there, because for better or worse, if someone's talking bad about you or good about you, they're talking about you. They know who you are. So I think that's really important.
I have a really good idea for a video we got to talk about after.
Okay, is it?
it-
Why
Does
is it
involve
after?
pizza?
Yeah.
We talk about it now.
is it like
I
in
mean,
a
I see
bedroom?
the
Like-
no, I see the helicopter landing, right, and Chad running out with loan docs.
Okay.
Chad, really?
Getting to the
Our
table,
partner?
yeah, we get you there.
Well, see that's
Fragile.
when I get this thing, it's gonna
I'm
be
excited for
well,
you,
it's gonna
dude.
be a referral source, because I'm gonna take anybody who does a deal with me or gives me a referral up for a tour of Detroit. And I'm
That's
gonna
awesome.
turn everybody that I know
is
into.
So I got to commend you, man, because a lot of people don't think outside of the box in our industry. They just kind of do the same thing, the same model, and you've taken an aggressive stance on being different and setting yourself apart, which is a big deal in our industry, and that will get you very far. And obviously, you're doing really well for it. So, like, dude, I commend you for your innovation on that. It's awesome. I'm really
Appreciate
I'm
that.
excited for you and watching you like grow, dude, because it's like
I'm excited too.
that stuff is fun to watch when you watch someone that gets it and you see them succeeding. That makes me happy, like wholeheartedly.
I got to do a deal with you because I want to take that helicopter ride.
see, that's
You
the
don't have
thing.
$1
is-
deals, dude. You live in Burton.
Well, that's the thing is my perception online is people think that it's like, yeah, you do all this big stuff, and my average sales price is still like $300,000-$400,000.
You still got to take what you got.
It's all I work with anybody and everybody, and
Hustling.
it's always and I treat those people just as well. And I think that even in those price points, the people are going to appreciate as much
Yeah.
going flying and doing something different. You
Yeah,
know,
it doesn't matter. I mean, you're not gonna be picky, right?
well, most people like a closing gift is, a bottle of
bottle of
booze
wine
or
or
a
something, yeah.
cutting board or something like, which I've done.
Yeah. Not a fan.
And that I mean taking somebody like that, it's a pretty enormous expense, but it's definitely
It's totally different. It's
It's-
memorable. You can put it on your Facebook. You can take pictures. It's an experience, an emotional experience that you'll never forget. That is way more powerful than getting a cutting board,
yeah.
in my opinion. So,
I agree.
Right?
And like one guy was super cool. I know I'm probably
No,
taking
no,
time
we're
away
good.
from all
No,
this other
no,
stuff,
no,
but my friend Scott, he's one of the guys who first guy to ever take me riding a dirt bike, and one of my
What were
friend's
you, like
parents.
3 years old?
No, I didn't start that early. I wish I did, but so anyways, we go out looking for houses.
Yeah.
He buys the first house we see. He's a buyer, so I didn't have to spend a bunch of money marketing to him and this and that.
Yeah.
And while we were out looking, he mentioned an artist that paints cityscapes of Detroit on old Model A doors.
That's awesome.
And I got the name of the artist. I called her and I said, "Hey, can you make me one of these doors?" She goes, I have one left and I'm painting it for myself." I'm like, "I don't care what it costs, just buy it. Like, let me do this, right?"
Yeah.
And so I ended up, buying this artwork for, it was like $800, right?
Not cheap, right?
And brought it to closing from something that he mentioned one time.
That's so awesome.
And I'm like, again, this is Scott. He took me dirt biking like the first time ever, bought the first house he walked through, super easy to deal with.
Yeah.
And so I bring that to closing. His eyes light up. And you'd better believe every time he's in his house and somebody makes a comment about that, it's like, it's going to be the story that they tell. Like, your guy did that for you?
Yeah, but you did that because you actually care.
I did.
right?
Yeah, it wasn't about that, but I
Yeah.
know that that's what's going to come
There's a
because of it.
byproduct for it.
Yeah.
Right. Here, it all goes back to, dude, be a good human, do good things, care about people, and good things will happen to you. Because you're probably like, I really want to make this guy happy. Like, that's exciting to me, right? I want to make him smile. He gets that, and now he's like, dude, that was awesome.
Yeah, and he's been a friend forever, and he got me into dirt biking.
Yeah.
I got him into road racing, and then he bought my Kawasaki. We go to the racetrack, and we
have
have
a
a
friend.
blast. So,
Dude, well, congrats on all the stuff that you're doing. You're doing it all right, man. Everything that you've said is like, I think, like super, super legit. Like, you know what you're doing. I want to get into these topics just so we can hit them real quick, but we could talk for hours. We'll have you back on to talk about your story more, but and we'll get to your contact information at the end here. So, but I do want to talk about some of these topics as we're running out a little bit of time. Real quick, I don't know if you know this, Dylan, but Quicken just got hammered on a lawsuit for $740 million.
no, I did not hear
Yeah,
that.
so Quicken, House Canary and Title Source, or title company, at some point, they were doing a deal where they were going to do house valuations, and it went sour. And then, basically they said House Canary didn't provide their end of the bargain, and House Canary was like, you stole all our algorithms, you did all this stuff, sued them, went to court in Texas. They won the first judgment for $710 million. Second judge, they tried to appeal. Quicken did, because they're fighting it, obviously, because it's a lot of, it's like $750 million, right? The judge threw it out and said, actually, you owe him $740, upped how much they owed him. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, dude. So, look, I know Quicken does a lot of like super legit stuff. I know people over there, they're pretty high and tight, but they're competitive, right? So who knows what happened on the back end, but for a jury to say that they were guilty and then another judge to uphold it and then up the fine, something happened there. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah.
That's
that's a lot of money. That's $750 million.
Happens all the time, man.
It does?
Well,
Does it?
no,
does it?
just read about all these banks, right? Like, they made a mistake with
Wells Fargo.
Oh,
yeah,
dude,
and you know what?
they
I'm
have
sure it didn't come
billions.
from the top of Quicken Loans, but unfortunately, it's a two-way street, right? Like, your employees are a representation of your company. So if a few people
Legally,
I'm
yes.
sure some people got fired, right? So
Yeah, probably.
I'm sure they didn't get
Yes.
bonus.
And I'm sure
Yeah.
it wasn't. They probably.
well, depending on where that
Yeah, they
where
did
that
at
happened
Goldman
in the chain.
Sachs.
But,
Yeah.
if you work for Quicken Loans and you ended up with your group that did this project, right, and did it, and you tell your boss, yeah, it's all above board.
Oh yeah,
right?
dude. I just created a whole new.
I mean,
thing,
I'm sure
right?
there's some responsibility of
Maybe
Quicken to vet that out, but it's like, okay,
Maybe that's why they had to sell the casino downtown.
I think Dan's gonna be all right. By the way.
Yeah, right.
You
Yeah.
know, like it's a lot of money though, man. We're not talking about 10, 15.
Yeah.
It's a private company. $750 million is a lot.
look
of,
at
lot
these
of coin,
look
dude.
at these lawsuits for Wells Fargo making small mistakes on like PMI or it's like, well, Wells Fargo paid $50 million of restitution today, and then 6 months later,
They keep
Wells
paying.
Fargo's paid. It's like,
keep
damn,
paying.
but they're they are made of money.
They
Literally,
keep paying.
they're
I
a
can't
bank.
believe how much they
You know?
paid, and they just keep moving on. They're like, well, yeah. It's like, how much money do they have that they
Think
could
of
just,
all the bad debt from the loans that
Yeah.
granted they write it off or whatever, but it's like,
a buddy of mine works.
They
for
get a
Wells
slap on their
Fargo.
wrist, and they don't even care because how much
It's not even a
money they
slap on the
have.
wrist.
Yeah.
It's a fucking it's a. I want to say what it really is, but it's not a good. It's a lot of money. It's interesting to see what happens with Quicken. Quicken is like, listen. So I don't know if you're obviously on the mortgage side. Refinances are way down. Quicken historically was a big refinance shop. They've got a lot of loan officers. They got a lot of overhead, and it's interesting right now because there's a lot of companies are laying people off. There's a lot of loan officers that were so reliant on leads for
right.
so long, didn't have a sphere of influence, didn't create contacts in the industry, didn't do purchase transactions, and now they've got to figure out a way how to survive
Well,
It's a call center with your hand is held all the way through the process.
all the way through
there.
the process, right?
no, I think Quicken will be fine. They'll adapt or whatever because they're a mortgage company, right? Or
They're innovative, dude.
yeah,
I mean, look,
but
Dan's
these
didn't-
banks,
yeah,
it's crazy. Like, people are like, "Oh, I'm going to Bank of America," blah blah blah. They send me a quote. It's crazy. They're paying. They're paying for the loans, right? And
Banks
it's
are really
like
dipping out.
yeah, margin.
the margin is zero.
yeah.
Just probably to keep some loans on their books because they have no other value other than rate.
And that's why it's like great to work with guys like you and private lenders and brokers and things
Yeah.
like that because when I call the phone, I don't have to go through a waiting period,
Yeah.
get to talk to an assistant, then to get to the guy that did the pre-approval, but he's not even the guy working on the loan anymore.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah,
like
it's like, well, it's not in my hands anymore. It's a different department.
Yeah.
and you don't see any of these guys at the closings either. Like a lot of the guys I work with, they come to the closing.
Yeah, I gotta go to one after this, right?
It's somebody that I would, go
something
grab
I
a drink
think
with after, or go to lunch and hang out with.
Well, dude, it's a big deal.
I'll make a good analogy for you, and I'm sure you'll understand. Like calling us, right, and asking, it's like you're calling Bentley, right,
Yeah.
or Rolls Royce.
Yeah.
Well, it's a small team of people working and hand building this car.
Yeah.
Right. We can tell you where it's at. We can tell you when it's done. We can tell you any issues we're
Mm-hmm.
going to have, as opposed to calling Ford and saying,
It's on the
"Hey,
line, dude.
what's number 1,265
It's-
F-150 look like coming off the line?" Well, let me call down there. Oh, he's sick today. Oh, he's
that's-
there's
that's where some
1,000
of the-
people working on it.
Some of the real estate teams too.
Same thing.
You do deals with some of these guys,
Yeah.
and it's like, who am I talking
to?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's like, you recognize the name on the listing, but then it's like, who's this
That's
guy?
not the
who's
guy
that?
you're talking
yeah,
to.
right.
You'll never talk to that guy.
Uh-huh.
right?
The Rolls Royce will cost you more than the F-150, maybe. But
Yeah, right.
You'll appreciate it, and it'll be a great experience.
But we can't bag on the F-150 in
It's
in
a
Michigan.
heaven deal.
It's
a heaven.
Dude,
I mean,
by the way,
it's a heaven truck. I'm
Dylan
not.
10
I'm
pulled
just
up
saying
an
the
F-150
process.
that you need a ladder to get into. By the way. Like,
He probably next to my card. I thought he was gonna crush it.
yeah, but to your point, man, I don't, consumers a lot of times because they're just so used to going to their bank, right, when they do a mortgage or
Yeah.
whatever it may be, have a hard time understanding that potentially a more of a boutique or smaller shop who has just the same resources, probably more because they're more hands-on, is a better experience, right? And as a real estate agent, when you get an offer, and let's talk about this. I think this is important. And you have 3 offers, and they're all the same.
Yep.
Let's say hypothetically, one's from Omega Lending, one's from Bank of America, and one is from Quicken. Let's say, which one are you taking?
It's the one that you can call,
Yeah.
and they pick up the phone. Now, when I submit an offer with somebody, I always copy my banker on there and say,
Yeah.
please reach out. And my people, my lenders, are going to reach out to the other agent and say,
Yeah.
hey, this guy's solid. Like
Yes.
we're closing loans
Nobody's
in this
doing
many
that.
days. And
People discount that effectiveness.
oh, and I've handily won deals where we weren't the highest price
Because you made them more confident.
because we made them more confident. We write personal letters to the sellers.
Yeah.
We write, I reach out to the agent and I give my loan officers a solid recommendation. I give my bank, my client, my buyer. It's
a team.
I let them know that everything's going to be awesome. And then as soon as it gets signed, even if it's not, we still want it.
Well,
Yeah.
And at
But-
that
Yeah.
price point, like the $5,000 to $10,000 of surety is worth it to a seller, right?
Yeah.
As
Yeah.
opposed to, you're selling a $150,000 house. That $2,000 goes a long way, I'm sure, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, hey,
There's got to be a lot of confidence in what you're doing, and you've got to have a team that is all because it's competitive. Let's be honest. Like no matter what, if there's a house that's like good, a lot of people want it. So you've got to use as many tools and opportunities to make sure you set yourself apart at a high level. And having a really good team around you is part of that. Title company,
Right.
Mortgage company, your inspection, right? All that has to be buttoned up.
Well, I was actually selling my brother's house 2 years ago, and we turned a $10,000 higher offer from Quicken Loans to work with a private lender because I knew they were just throwing a number up there, and then we are going to get the appraisal back, and it was going to be terrible because I'd represented buyers with Quicken approvals. We go through, we have a $25,000 discrepancy in appraisal on a $200,000 purchase price. We lost 3 deals. We switched to a different bank that I used that then reappraised the same house at value.
Yeah.
And my person got to buy a house that day. And
Yeah.
we lost 3 deals in a row
Wow.
working with them. So it's like, yeah,
It's hard. It's
I
tough.
tell these stories, and it's like people are like, oh, well, it's the biggest thing, bigger this and this and that, and they've got all these resources. It's like you're funding them to have these special ping pong tables and conference rooms and $2,000 chairs, and it's like that's not necessarily the best service.
And to be
that you're gonna get.
fair, listen, Quicken does a lot of. I worked there for 5. I know
Yeah.
their process. I know the people over there. Listen, it's not that the company's bad or they have ill. It's just that model when we're talking about a purchase transaction that has a lot of intricacies is difficult to scale on a mass level because it takes a lot more like
Local understanding,
you just there's more moving
experience
parts
and
in the purchase
Right.
side.
And I agree with that because I've had deals go very smoothly with them as well.
Yeah.
And it's really just it's when you have one that really explodes and it's hard to reach people and things like that. I mean, and it's really more like, okay, Royal Oak Market, multiple offer situations,
Trust me, yeah.
appraisal guarantees.
Yeah.
You know, that's going to be a really tough market where if that's what your pre-approvals from.
Yeah,
is,
it's
you
that
know.
people
Yeah.
don't get that, but like to your point, nobody like it's all, like when everything goes right, everything goes right.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't need, but if so when there's a hiccup, and how do you handle that hiccup, which is really important.
This thing right here, the cell phone,
Yeah.
right, and texting allows and facilitates these transactions to go smoothly. Like just a quick text, hey, order the appraisal, inspection went good, blah blah blah, right? Like you have that, you have group chats with clients.
Yep.
You know, it's like things that you cannot do at a big company. Well, we want you on the record, right?
Or you can leave the office and go meet them, and
And you can't
see their
talk
house with
frankly.
them.
I mean, you know, you're sitting there. I remember at Quicken Loans, if you're sitting there, you know, at least when I was there, and you're like, fuck this, fuck, you know, they're like, whoa, bro, you
Yeah.
know.
When I was there, it was a little bit different. It was
Yeah.
more wild.
Well, they
West. I was
tightened-
like, oh, yeah.
Wolf of Wall
They
Street.
they tightened
it's
it up a
wild.
little, you know.
Back when I
But-
started, dude, it was wild. I mean, it's a totally different company from when I started. We used to get on the phone and just hammer people, like, and drink beers and call Hawaii because there was no licensing required. But that's a whole different. I mean, we could get a whole show. on
Yeah,
that.
well, I mean, you know, the
Probably
bigger you
shouldn't.
get, the more you kind of gotta be high and tight, right?
Right.
You
Yeah.
know, so and it's
There's pros and cons. Dude, look, like I
we
said,
can be like water. You know, I'll
You know
get
what's
on the
really
phone
funny,
with an old
Dylan?
woman and be like, yes, ma'am.
You know what's really funny,
Right.
Dylan? Quicken is one of our partners. Like we can actually write loans through Quicken's wholesale,
Right.
and we have, and they do a good job. But we're leading that, right? That's still they're just underwriting
Our
it.
back office,
right? They're
essentially.
basically in the background. We're still handling the transaction, the pre-approvals from us, and it's our process that we're using. It's not
Yeah.
theirs, right?
And what's crazy is like the whole appraisal thing. It is funny sometimes because we can, if an appraisal comes in low, right? Like we have the ability to say, okay, listen, we agree that was a bad appraisal. We'll pay for a new one, and we're going to use a different lender, and it will often come in higher.
Yeah.
Right? It's kind of crazy, and sometimes that happens from one lender to another.
I just
and
had it come
sometimes Quicken
40%
comes in
higher.
higher. It's crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know.
40%.
so listen to this.
But the client doesn't know, or maybe they know, but it's not as big of a burden on the client to change lenders like that because they're still working with us.
Well, and we have
We're
all
the
the
guys
they
that
don't
work
see
for
the
them,
hey,
difference.
right?
sign these new
Yeah.
docs and you're good.
Yeah.
So,
Right?
dude, let me tell you a story. I had an appraisal come in. It's a house in Detroit. It's a newer agent, but she sold a house. It was a $95,000 house in Detroit. Hard to appraise,
Yeah.
right? Totally redone. One of the nicest ones on the block. Came in at $60K the first time, and I'm like, dude, I don't think we're gonna get to 95 ever.
Yeah.
And I'm like, listen, we're gonna redo the appraisal. We even paid for it because I
Yeah.
wanted to make sure that they were taken care of. It's not typical, but I wanted to make sure everybody was happy. And I really thought that was a charity. thing.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
We wrote it
$500
off.
bucks. It's done. Got the appraisal back yesterday, 98K. That's a big difference,
Yeah.
dude.
Yeah.
Loans closing.
You know,
I
like
had
we
one
had the
last year
opportunity to
came in
do
at
that.
220, and the following one came in at 280
Yeah.
in Rochester.
Yeah.
Right, and it's like these buyers, I can't blame them. We're like, I don't even know if I want to buy this house.
Yeah.
You know, we're either
And-
underwater or we're
and you're
in
sitting
the
there,
money.
and
Yeah.
these people just at that point they're assured that they're getting ripped off, and you're like, no, this guy, like I had a deal
Yeah.
in Troy with Birmingham Schools of a newer brick colonial.
Yeah.
The appraisal came back with 70s bi-level and tri-levels that were comps for it.
That's not possible. Yeah, that's
and,
not good. Yeah.
And so we ended up getting to buy the house for less money,
okay, so you
which is great
negotiated
for
less?
which is
Yeah,
great for my
sometimes
client.
it works out.
But
But
they
that
go,
seller guy-
but they're sitting, they're like pissed. They're like, oh, we were getting ripped off. I'm like, how is this even similar to this at all? And they're like, well, it's just it was a tough one, and it ended up.
Yeah, appraisals are opinion, just so everybody knows.
Yes.
Like, they can
Literally
vary
says
widely,
opinion of value.
which is which is sad that like that everything's based on that, but
Well,
it is our process.
And it all depends. Yeah, I mean, that appraiser's going to go out there and he's going to say, these are the comps that I feel best justify this property. And another person could go out and say, you know what, these higher end comps are better to justify it, and I'll adjust down. Right? People
Well-
are either adjusting down or adjusting up, or it's
And
flat in a
Something that
cookie cutter market.
I think that is important is I go to my appraisals on all my listings. I bring a package of how, and I never tell them how to do a job. I said, this is how I came up with my price.
It's fair.
I've
You
came
should
up-
be doing that. That's a
I've ca-
good agent.
I've came up, and if I thought it was really pushing it, that guy might get donuts.
You shake his hand. yeah, for sure. But you shake his hand, you look him in the eye, and say, "Man, this is what I'm trying to do."
Yeah.
And you appeal to the human side of it, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that because the house is selling for that.
Yeah.
So for me, if someone is willing to pay X, that's how much the house is worth.
Well, especially when you have 4 offers
Yeah.
and they're all at that price.
Yeah.
And then it comes in low, and it's like, here's my 4 offers that we had that.
That's why I always say something's always worth what someone's willing to pay for it.
But let's-
Unfortunately, your appraisal will not reflect that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's be honest. The appraisal process and the whole thing about appraisals is not to reassure the buyer. It's not to protect the buyer. It's to protect the lender, to make sure that if you stop paying your loan, we can turn around and recoup our loan.
Well,
We
right
can
now,
sell this house.
I feel like I have had so many appraisals come in high, which is crazy, right?
Yeah.
And I think that the big push behind that was all these appraisal guarantees this past summer, right?
Yeah.
Because
There's
it's
a
like,
lot of
well,
big influence.
you know, there's no prior comps to support that. We'll put a $10 or $15 or $20,000 guarantee on it. Well, hey, it did come in low,
Yeah.
but hey,
It comes in right by
you
the
knew what you
10K,
were going
yeah.
in for, right? Or it came
Yeah.
in halfway. That house sold at that price, which now pushes the prices up a little
Real
bit.
quick, Dylan. So, you know, it sounds to me that you've decided to create a team around you that you trust and you feel good about, whether you know the LO side, whatever. Talk to like these young agents that potentially are just going for the people that are doing like MSAs or co-marketing and like kind of get their hand out. Like I think because and it doesn't sound like you do any of that.
No.
Right? So you're mostly looking for good
What is
partners.
that?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
His face.
So like
Yeah.
like what made you decide to like look for a good team as opposed to just like because like historically speaking, realtors and loan officers, there's like this rift and they're not really working together. I mean, we don't believe in that, but that kind of what happened. Like, oh, that loan officer's a piece of shit, or that agent's a piece of
Or
shit.
let's build a relationship, pay for my stuff.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
works, right? And I get
If
it
it-
because,
sugar
like,
daddy.
to your point earlier before we started, you know, if you're in a lower price point area and your average price is $180,000,
You can make money doing it.
You can, but
Yeah.
it usually takes a lot of money to do it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You have to buy a ton of
3,
leads,
4,
and you got to get
5,000,
out there,
yeah.
especially how saturated that market is with real estate agents.
Yeah.
Yeah, I paid for Zillow leads for like 9 months.
Yeah.
And I think it paid like $1,500 a month, and I did one deal off of it.
Like they convert at 1%.
Yeah.
That is like
Well,
across the board.
And putting yourself where you're at, I mean, how many $1 million, buyers are going to go on Zillow
That's a
and not
different
call
market,
their
yeah.
referral?
Well, and
Right.
the crazy thing was I was a premier agent, so they would send me a lead for a property that I wasn't familiar with.
yeah.
And these people are calling me. It's like it connects you right away.
Yep.
And they're like, "Hey, does the property on
I don't
123
know.
Main Street have 3 bathrooms?"
I don't know, man.
And I'm like driving down the highway, looking up my app, and I'm looking at the same app that they're looking at, trying to find information.
Yeah.
Like, and they can just smell over the phone that you don't know what you're talking
No
about.
idea. You're fumbling,
If
right?
someone
Especially
calls
a
me
savvy
about my
buyer, right?
listings, I've got my facts.
This is what I
dialed.
got. It's got chariot
Yeah.
floors, got the cabinets, all the all the way through it.
We do some Zillow co-marketing, and our face subsequently is on the bottom of a lot of
We
these
get calls
listings,
right
right?
Yeah.
on properties.
Hey, what's that house on, 123, I'm like,
I'm like, yo,
what,
bro, I'm
dude?
a loan officer. Bro.
Yeah, they're like, oh, and I always know when they call me about a
Yeah.
house. Oh, I found you on Zillow, right? So
Yeah.
let me get you in contact with one of.
Right.
Nope, I'm not interested.
Yeah, it's-
what do you do? I do more. No, man, I want to land contract.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, no shit.
yeah.
Hey, so there's another article I was going to get into. We're running out of time, so I'm not going to get into it. But Blackstone did raise $20 million in the real estate portfolio. That gives them $20 billion. It gives them $60 billion worth of buying power. They're betting on the market in a big way. They might be betting that there may be a little bit of a turn, but overall they're betting on the market. I think that's why that story is actually important, because they're setting themselves up to buy a lot of real estate across the country. So it gives you a little bit of an idea. Those of you that are talking about the doom and gloom of the real estate market, you're probably not smarter than these guys. They're
Right.
probably setting themselves up. I mean, they've got a lot of money going into this, right? So
Well, I mean, Blackstone, when it hit the floor, they had. I mean, it's a hedge fund.
Yeah.
Right. And
20
they bought
Everything.
so many properties and bad notes. They buy a lot of non-performing notes.
yeah, because they
Which is-
believe that they can turn
You
it
essentially
around.
own that property then,
Yeah.
right? Your
Yeah.
first lien
They're
holder.
hedging it.
Yeah.
It's smart, because real
What they
estate
do.
is one of the most stable parts of our economy, and it always has been, it always will be. People
Well, it's
will
the
always
most
buy homes.
tangible part of our economy.
Well, it's a multi-trillion-dollar part of our economy that's so important that, again, I always go back to this. In 2008, we saw the most catastrophic failure in the real estate market that we've ever seen, but the rebound was ridiculous because it's such a stable market.
Yeah.
So, so we do this thing called 3 questions. This is what we end the day on. So
Yeah.
these are directed to you. The first one we all ask everybody. I'll ask you 2 different ones. What scares you, Dylan?
This would be good.
Because this guy jumps out of like plane.
Yeah.
Like I don't know what the fuck is going to scare this guy.
That's give me the other 2 and let me think about that.
If you were to marry one famous or go on a date with one famous person, who would it be and why?
Can I go on a date with Mark Cuban?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Dude, that just
Yeah.
tells you, that speaks volumes about how this guy thinks. That's really awesome, dude.
I'd rather go out with somebody that is or Grant Cardone would be cool. He's
Grant
a baller.
Cardone is good. Yeah.
If you guys haven't read 10X, 10X is great.
Yeah.
If you don't follow Cardone Capital,
I reached out to him. I asked him to do our podcast, and he literally responded and said, "Not at this time, but please keep in contact." He's a very, very open person.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's an interesting answer. That just speaks volumes of who he is, dude.
I've hit people up on Instagram like Jordan Belfort and offered him, he's a helicopter pilot too. I've offered him a tour of Detroit if he's ever in town. I've any of these guys that I think are awesome, I'll shoot him a message
That's
and
what
say,
I'm saying,
hey,
dude.
if you're ever in town, let's go out and I'll fly out to lunch.
Think about that, guys. He's just taking shots at anything, like and then they're all
have
things that
to.
you're
Putting
interested
yourself
in.
out there.
Like, right? So that's awesome. That's a very good answer.
So Jordan Belfort has a sales training course called Straight Line Selling,
Yeah.
and it's what he's pitching at the end of the movie. And after I listened to that, I wrote him, a handwritten letter, and sent it out to him, so that he was one of my inspirations of coming into sales.
Yeah.
And it's funny he didn't respond to me. So Jordan Belfort, if you're listening to
If
this,
you're listening, which you probably aren't, there's 4 people listening right now.
He's doing good on Instagram now too, though.
He's pushing the envelope too.
He's
Yeah.
pushing it.
He's
So.
pushing it. I mean, look, content is a lot of very important right
Movie
now.
industry helped them out a little bit.
Yeah.
But
Right.
So what scares you?
interesting enough.
I'm still working on that.
You're still working on it right now? Really? Okay. All right.
Some people say like failure. I say
Don't-
spite.
No, I would
You
never.
can't
I would
feed
never.
him
I would
answers.
never look at that at failure because, I think
Yeah.
your biggest successes come after failure.
You have to
so,
fail. You have to fail a lot.
Yeah,
You fail as much as possible.
the people that are actually killing it have failed so much.
A
so
lot.
uh,
Mhm.
That's
You gotta
not. That, it
fail.
hasn't been that. But yeah, I mean, obviously, okay. Crashing stuff sucks. I broke
Yeah.
my femur 2 years ago. That really hurt.
Pain scares you.
That hurt.
Pain.
It was really, not being able to. I mean, obviously, okay. The number one thing would be becoming quadriplegic.
Not being able to work or
that
do
would
what
be
you
tough,
what you
man.
love.
That
Yeah.
would be my number one fear. Would be for sure.
That
Stop
would be
riding
tough.
bikes and jumping over houses.
But I
Not-
can't. That wouldn't be the quality of life that I wanted, though. So you have to take the risk. Like all of my motorcycle friends are all like, "Listen, I'll risk this. I'll risk that for that."
Yeah,
you
that's
know?
your ante to play. It's like that you're risking something to do
And
what
granted,
you
the
like, right?
chances are higher, but man, you risk that every time you get in a car.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
All right.
people.
icy road out
Especially if
today.
Paul's driving.
one funny thing is people are like people that know me just as a helicopter pilot. They're like, "Oh, that must be like dangerous." And it's like it's probably one of the safer things I'm going to do this week.
Yeah.
Between the motorcycle stuff, because that's where it really gets,
Yeah.
really gets out of hand. So.
I think you should talk to people about like your thought process. It's really strong. Like I'd want to you talk to our
Write a
team.
book.
Like, I'm not even kidding you. I'm like super impressed by you.
I appreciate that.
Last question: if you were one animal, what would it be
Your spirit
and why?
animal?
Well, this is super easy. A peregrine falcon. When I was a little kid, my mom was like,
They're bad. They're
yeah.
bad.
When I was, I see this bird outside, and I'm like, why is he sitting on the tree? Why isn't he flying? Like, if
Yeah.
I was like, if I could fly, I'd do it all the time.
Yeah.
And
And pelicans, they die from like a million feet in
they
the
go
air.
really,
Yeah.
they go
Yeah.
really fast, and that was like, I always wanted to fly, and
That's it. That's awesome.
so and it wasn't until I watched the Red Bull movie. There's a scene where you see this
This
helicopter.
thing really made an impact on you. This Rebel.
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
can still picture the scene
You
in
should
my
write
head.
them a
This,
letter.
this second, yeah. They drop off some snowboarders at the top of the hill, and you see their helicopter is so almost inverted
Yeah.
that after they drop everybody off, they fly down the mountain really fast, almost upside down.
That's
And
wild.
it's in slow mo, and you see the blades just kind of churn real
wild.
slow. And I'm going to do that. And after that day, I didn't go back to college for one day, and I had 3 weeks left to get my associate's
Congratulations!
degree.
I think college is a farce, personally. Okay, so we got to wrap this up. Dylan, tell the audience how they can get a hold of you for anything that they might want.
You can go to my website, helirealtor.com. But the way that you can learn every single thing about me,
Yeah.
the easiest is to go on my Instagram.
It's your story.
Watch the stories, the story highlights. It'll give you, everything you need to know.
What's
And
your Instagram handle?
at helirealtor.
Of course.
Right.
Yeah. Very good.
So-
A phone number they can reach you if they need to.
Yeah, 248-990-0356. Try me. I answer all the time.
Yeah.
I'm religious about the phone to a fault.
These are all qualities that take to be successful. Anyways, we'll talk about that later. So, thank you so much for doing the show, man. Like, really enlightening. Really, really looking forward to watching your growth and from afar. You've done a really good job, man. So
Thank you so
kudos
much.
to
I
you.
appreciate that.
To our audience, please go to our page on iTunes, like, share, subscribe, leave us a comment. Go to IRE Podcast. Go to Podcast Detroit. Wherever you can find you want to get your podcast, that's where we're at. So we appreciate our audience, all 15 of our fans, and the 2 in Sweden. Appreciate it. We've got a few in Brazil, and I got a few in India now. It's good.
We're in India now?
Yeah.
Didn't know that.
So God bless everyone. Jessica, thank you so much for doing what you do again. This guy's impressive,
You're
right?
welcome. Very.
Like
yeah.
super impressive, right?
Very.
Yeah. We don't get this much. So thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day. We'll talk to you soon.
You've been listening to Inside
That's super
Real
fun.
Estate,
It was good,
the
eh?
nation's
Yeah.
top real estate